Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, English readers. Welcome, welcome. I'm happy to be here today. I'm glad that we are live today. We are meeting today for chapter 3. I'm feeling a little bit more excited, a bit more not excited, but a bit less tired than yesterday. Doing the live in the evening is a little bit more challenging. I have to admit, my live yesterday I didn't feel quite 100% of myself yesterday. So I'm gonna try to make it up to you today and be a little bit more awake, feel less tired than yesterday. So today we're reading chapter 3. So if you're just landing on this video or on this live, if you don't know me, so I'm Lydie, and I'm Lydie Bureau, and I'm an English teacher, and the my particularity maybe, or the thing that makes my teaching a little bit different than other teachers maybe, or what would I enjoy about teaching English is teaching English through stories and through reading. So that's my thing. Yeah. I'm a teacher in a middle school, and and high school as well. And what I really enjoy is teaching English through the the length also can be through the lens of characters and plot and events and stuff that happens in stories, or the elements that are specific to a story, to a good story. And what I particularly like reading are stories written by women. And this one, more specifically, is a classic, an adaptation of a classic of English literature written by Emily Bronte. And no, there is no end. Written by Emily Bronte. She is a writer from the Victorian period. And so that means that she is a writer from the 19th century. And she is a part of that very illustrious family of writers. I mean, sisterhood, because of writers. She has two other sisters who are also writers and poets. And she wrote this novel, Wuthering Heights. It's her only novel. After that, she focused more on writing poems and, oopsie, here, sorry, I'm gonna fix this, on writing poems and short stories. So that's her thing. That's her own novel. And we have just started the live reading of this book. So I'm reading live on Instagram, and then I make the recording available on YouTube here. And I already thank you for watching this video. That means a lot to me. And if you could comment as well, there is always a question that I ask in the description. So please do comment and give your answer after watching this live. you are going to get the answer, definitely. And you can comment to give me the answer, and I'll be happy to reply you back. And it's the same on Instagram. Please try to test yourself and answer the question once you have watched the live and that you have read. Sometimes my members or the people who are who or the followers who are listening the reading, they tend to read again the story afterwards, because there are some parts that maybe they haven't understood properly. So they read it with me, they listen to my reading and my comments, and then they reread it. And if you want to be able to discuss further the novel and also practice your speaking skills in English, then please join the book club. It's Lydia's book club. And what I do is once a week, I organize I host a Zoom session on Saturdays, on Saturday mornings. And we meet on Zoom to discuss the chapters that we have read during the week. But sometimes we can discuss other types of other topics, often around books. It's always about books. Either it's about the book that we're currently reading, or the next book that we're going to read, or just about your own readings as well. If you're reading another book at the moment, or you want to share the story, then it's completely fine. So it's open, and it's very supportive. It's a very supportive community, and you also will have access to a Facebook group as well. And I'll be happy to welcome you in this community and join us every Saturday, more or less, and be part and enrich um, your knowledge in English and also in English literature. So please don't be afraid of joining the book club, and you can stop your membership whenever you want. You can just click on the link in my bio, become a member or join the book club. I think that's the name of the link. And you can be part of this book club and talk about books and improve your English. Yeah, because it's that's the best part of it, is that you will be able to practice your speaking skills. We're going to be in a small group, sorry. There's one group for now, but I make sure that in these groups we have the chance to there is a chance for everyone to have the opportunity to speak. So do come along, try and test. So let's start the quick recap of the first two chapters that we have read so far. So chapter 1, we discover our narrator of the story, Mr. Lockwood. He is the new tenant. So tenant is the word for someone that is renting a house. So you're not the owner of the house. You pay money to stay in the house, or a flat, whatever. But in that case, it's a house. So Mr. Lockwood is the new tenant of Thrushcross Grange. The story is happening in Yorkshire. It's north of England, and it's a very beautiful region and is known for a very, it's beautiful, but also very harsh kind of environment. The landscape is full of is described as a moor, or the moors, which describe the hills and the fields, the sort of landscape that are full of little hills and it's very green, and there are not much trees, so there are a lot of kind of huge fields of grass and sheep. So lots of farms as well, but well, lots, no, there are a lot of sheep, but the region is kind of isolated because there are not so many houses around, and it's more surrounded by fields and moors than houses. So there are not so many souls living in this area. But now Yorkshire is much more, I guess, because there are a lot of tourists are coming to visit places of the writers, the Bronte sisters' house, or a lot of, and there's also, it's very typical. So there are a lot of tourists now. So Yorkshire is a very attractive region now, much more than it used to be in the 19th century. So the landscape is more or less like this, or you would say here, it's very windy. Yeah, it's cold and it's a harsh kind of land, I would say. So yeah, that's the sort of setting that we are in this story. So Mr. Lockwood as well just arrives in this very wild and it's yeah, very wild and isolated region, and he is renting Thrushcross Grange. And when he arrives, he decides to visit his landlord to just introduce himself, and his landlord is called Mr. Heathcliff. And when he arrives at Wuthering Heights, that's the name of the house of Mr. Heathcliff, of the owner. And when he arrives, then it doesn't get the nice welcome that he expected. Instead, Mr. Heathcliff is very kind of withdraw, in the sense that he's very he doesn't speak much. He's very aggressive in his way of speaking, and especially when he addresses himself to to the servants. Yeah. When he talks to the servants, when he orders when he's giving orders to the servants, he's not very kind, I would say. So that's when Mr. Lockwood arrives, and after that we also learn about the other members of Mr. Heathcliff's house. So Mr. Heathcliff seems to be living with a servant, a lady, the housekeeper, Zilla, Joseph, a servant, who is also working in a farm, and two other young people, two young people, a young woman and a young man here. Her name is unknown for now. So far, we don't know how she's called. And the little boy is called Hareton. But we don't know whether if it's his son, his Mr. Heathcliff's son, that's Mr. Heathcliff. And we don't know whether if it's his son or not. Oh, I think, oh, my mistake. I think, could your son, oh yeah, he's not my son. No, actually, yeah. We learn actually that he's not his son. And and I guess the girl as well. Yeah. So they're not his children. So we don't really know how they're related for now. And Mr. Lockwood is not used to this kind of weather, or this kind of is not used to the region, and it's winter. And while he is at Wuthering Heights and talking with and meeting for the first time his landlord, it's snowing. There is a lot of snow that lands on the field, on the outside, and he is stuck in his landlord's house, and he's kindly asking if someone wouldn't mind to accompany him to back to his house. But the little girl get very rude to him, and she is telling him that nobody is going to, she won't take him back to his house, and nobody else will do it. So in a very upsetting reaction, Lockwood start to get out of the house, and there is Joseph, the servant, who is holding a lantern, and he's taking it, and Mr. Heathcliff sees it, and he's sending the dogs to attack him, to stop him. And so you would expect that that you would find another way to stop someone to leave your house, because in a way Mr. Heathcliff is sort of not saving his life, but he's he does not, yeah, in a way is saving his life, because Mr. Lockwood is never going to find his way back home, and Mr. Heathcliff knows it. So instead of maybe finding a more gentle way to stop him and ask him to stay, he's sending the dogs, and the dogs actually attack him, and I think they probably scratched his nose, and he's bleeding, and immediately Zila, the housekeeper, is coming to his rescue and asks him to go back inside and lay down on the and lie down on the bed so that she can fix his nose and take care of him. So hi, hello. So that's the chapter 1, and that was, yeah, and now it's chapter 2. What happened in chapter 2 is the night. So Mr. Lockwood is staying at their house, and he's staying in one of the room of the house, in the guest room. And here at some point Mr. Lockwood hears some noise and at the window, and there is a lot of wind, and suddenly he sees the ghost of a little girl, and here is very afraid, and the ghost is quite aggressive. She's asking him to let her in, but Mr. Lockwood refuses, and he he pretends to say, oh yes, leave. She's actually there was a branch, and I don't know, at some point the window breaks, and Mr. Lockwood gets the ghost take Mr. Lockwood's hand, and this is where she's asking him, and we learn that it's a young woman, and her name is Catherine Linton. And then she's asking him to let her in, but Mr. Linton refuses, and he pretends to let her in, but then he say, oh, if you leave my hand, then I will let you in. But actually he refuses, and after that Mr. Lockwood is kind of shocked and yeah, a little bit distracted. Oh no, he's shocked, I have to say. He's shocked, and he wakes up Mr. Heathcliff, and Mr. Heathcliff then bursts into the room and asking what is going on, and Mr. Lockwood says he's telling what he saw, about the ghost and everything. And at that point, Mr. Heathcliff asks him to leave the bedroom, to leave this room, and go and finish his night in his room. And instead, Mr. Heathcliff stays in this room, and that was yesterday's question. So what was the question? It was, what does Mr. Heathcliff do after he goes in Mr. Lockwood's room? So yeah, so here we learn that Mr. Heathcliff, so the answer was that Mr. Heathcliff start screaming Catherine's name, and he gets very distracted, or no, not distracted, but it's he's very it feels very disturbed by what Mr. Lockwood has just told him. And he's calling Catherine, Catherine, do come once more. So we don't know why. And the next morning, Mr. Lockwood, after this very agitated night, and very shocking. I mean, he didn't expect to see a ghost. It's very also what I was saying yesterday. The fact that there is this story of a ghost is very typical to the Gothic style of literature in the Victorian era. So this book is classified as a Gothic story because there is a lot of elements of supernatural elements, and the appearance of a ghost, and also this setting of a very dark setting of a story also is characteristic of ghosts, of a Gothic story. So the next morning, Mr. Lockwood is very tired, and he decides to, and then he asks Mr. Heathcliff to take him back to his house now that the snow is gone, and or sort of, they are able now to ride back to his house. Well, the house is renting. So when Mr. Lockwood arrives safe at Thrushcross Grange, he goes straight to bed, and he's very exhausted from the night that he has spent at Wuthering Heights. So very disturbing night. So chapter 3, this is it. Okay, let's read chapter 3. At Thrushcross Grange. This morning, I stayed in my bedroom and saw no one. But when evening came, I began to feel better. So I came downstairs. I called for Nelly Dean, my house. Hi, Cathy. Thank you for joining. I was wondering if you were coming. You're just on time. I'm starting. Hello. I'm just starting reading the chapter. I was just doing the quick recap earlier. So you're right on time again today. Great. Okay. So I started. This morning, I stayed in my bedroom and saw no one. But when evening came, I began to feel better. So I came downstairs. I called for Nelly Dean, my housekeeper, and asked her to make a fire and bring me dinner. You have lived here a long time, haven't you? So Nelly here is the housekeeper of Thrushcross Grange, okay? And Zilla is the housekeeper of Wuthering Heights. You have lived here a long time, haven't you? I asked after she had put a bowl of soup in front of me. I knew that she liked to talk, and I wanted to know about the people at Wuthering Heights. Yes, sir, she replied. I've lived here for 18 years. I came when Miss Catherine was married. Her husband... Oh, Miss Catherine married. There is a marriage. But who did she marry? Her husband employed me as as his housekeeper after she died. You've seen many changes, I said. I have, she replied, and a lot of trouble too. I was quiet for a moment, thinking about the beautiful young woman I had met at Wuthering Heights. Tell me, I said, why does Mr. Heathcliff prefer to live at Wuthering Heights when Thrushcross Grange is a much better house? Does he need money? Need money? She replied, no. Mr. Heathcliff is very rich, and he becomes richer every year. But if he can't make more money from having a tenant at Thrushcross Grange, then he will. Has he got children? I asked. He had a son, but he is dead now. With whom? Did he get a child with Catherine? And the young woman, who is she? She's Cathy, the daughter of Miss Catherine Earnshaw. Miss Catherine married Mr. Edgar Linton, who used to own Thrushcross Grange. I looked after Cathy, the poor little thing, she replied. Right, so here we've got some element. So Cathy is the daughter of Miss Catherine Earnshaw, the ghost, the women's ghost. And this Catherine Earnshaw, the ghost, married Edgar Linton, who was then the owner of the house of Thrushcross Grange. Okay. So now you wonder why the little Cathy is living with Mr. Heathcliff. Who used to own Thrushcross Grange? Okay, I looked after Cathy, poor little thing, she replied. And the boy, Hareton, is Cathy's cousin, she said, the son of Miss Catherine's brother, Hindley. They're a big family, aren't they? I'm a bit confused. Yes, sir. I saw that Wuthering Heights has Earnshaw and the date 1500 written above the door. Are they an old family? Yes, sir. They are a very old family, she said, and Hareton is the last of them. Wuthering Heights should be his, not Mr. Heathcliff. Ooh. She stopped speaking for a moment, then said, Mr. Heathcliff is a difficult man, isn't he? I smiled at her. Yes, he's a rough and angry man with a bad temper. A very bad temper, she replied. What terrible thing has happened in his life to make him like that? I asked. It's a sad story, sir. Mr. Heathcliff is the cuckoo who pushed the others out of their nest. I will tell you about it. And then she sat down in front of the fire she had just made and began to tell me her story. The cuckoo. What is the cuckoo? What is that? What is a cuckoo? Oh yeah, of course, it's a bird that puts its eggs in another bird's nest. It makes a loud call that sounds like its name. Ah, like a cook. Okay, okay. In this story, Nelly thinks that Mr. Heathcliff is like a cuckoo. Okay. It's a bird. Right. Right. So that's very interesting. So the the young man is meant to be should be the descendant, or should be the owner of Wuthering Heights, but it's actually Mr. Heathcliff. So that's quite confusing indeed. So let's hear about the story. It started many years ago when I was a small child. Before I came to live here, I lived at Wuthering Heights. It's Nelly who's talking. My mother looked after Hindley Earnshaw, and I used to play with him and his sister, Catherine. One summer afternoon, Hindley's father left for Liverpool. He was gone for 3 days, and the children missed him a lot. On the third night, they did not go to bed. They waited in the sitting room for him to return. So Hindley, there's a lot of characters. I think they should have done like the Little Women, like in the level 1, they should have put a lot of characters and all the characters' faces and and the links between them. It's actually what they've done. Now talking about this, it's actually what they've done in the original book. Look, that's the original version, and they did like a family tree. Look at this. The what's it called? Genealogical table. Yeah. So you can see Mr. and Mrs. Earnshaw here, and they have one, two children, Hindley and Catherine. And where is this place? Ah, that's Earnshaw. And Mr. and Mrs. Linton. Yeah. And then you've got Heathcliff here. Yeah, that's good. That's helpful. Otherwise you can get confused. So Hindley and Catherine are brothers and sisters. But who is Heathcliff? So let's continue. Where was I? So their dad went to Liverpool and they're waiting for him. At 11 p.m., the door opened and Mr. Earnshaw came in and fell back into his chair. Then he opened his big coat and cried, "Look at this, wife. I've never carried anything so heavy in my life, but we must see it as a gift from God." Catherine and Hindley moved forward, and above Catherine's head, I saw a dirty, black-haired child. Look at this. Like a little fragile little bird. Look at this. Very sad. And you can see already the reaction of Catherine. Very smiley and welcoming. Whereas Hindley doesn't seem to be happy to see coming this new member in the family. He was big enough to walk, and his face looked the same age as Catherine's. But when he spoke, it was in a language that no one could understand. At first, Mrs. Earnshaw was very angry. "How will we feed him when we have our own children to look after?" So you can see the face of the mother. Now she's not really happy about this this little gift, it says. Where was I? "How will we feed him when we have our own children to look after?" she shouted at her husband. But Mr. Earnshaw was a very kind man. He said that the boy had been hungry and alone, and no one knew whose child he was. He could not leave the boy like that, he said, and he wanted him to become part of the family. Then he asked me Then he asked me to wash the then he asked me to wash the boy and let him sleep with Hindley and Catherine. He could not live. Wait, there's something wrong in the text. He said that the boy had and alone, and no one knew who child he was. He could not leave this boy like that, he said, and he wanted him to become part. Then he asked me to wash the boy. I think that's a mistake in the text. Then he asked the mother to wash the boy and let him sleep with Hindley and Catherine. Yeah, that's a mistake in the text, because otherwise it doesn't make sense, because here it's the narrator, it's Nelly. Oh yeah, oh yes, I was confused, sorry. He asked me, and the me is Nelly. Yeah, of course, she is the housekeeper in the house. Then he asked me to wash the boy and let him sleep with Hindley and Catherine. Okay. I even get confused myself, sorry. The Earnshaws called him Heathcliff. It was the name of a son who had died. It has always been both his first and last name. So it's just Heathcliff. That's very convenient. Heathcliff and Mr. Heathcliff. Heathcliff was a quiet, moody child, but Mr. Earnshaw loved him, and he became Mr. Earnshaw's favorite. So now you can guess why the little boy Hindley is not happy about the coming of this new boy, because he's going to be left out by his dad. And maybe you can sort of guess why maybe he's now the owner of the house. He inherited the house. Yeah. Heathcliff and Catherine quickly became close, and they played together all the time. But Hindley hated Heathcliff, and he used to tease him and hit him. Heathcliff's face was often bruised. When Mrs. Earnshaw became ill and died 2 years after Heathcliff arrived, Hindley teased and hit the boy even more. So now you can understand why Heathcliff has a lot of violence in him, because he has been hurt and violated, or more like he has been bitten, and he's been suffering during his childhood because of his sort of half stepbrother, sort of. Then, when Catherine and Heathcliff were around 13 years old, Mr. Earnshaw also became ill. Hi, Melissa. He slowly became very thin and weak, and he changed. He wasn't gentle and kind now. He was silent and moody, and sometimes he had a terrible temper. He thought that everyone hated him for bringing Heathcliff to the house, and he did not want to hear bad things said about the boy. Of course, his father's love for Heathcliff made Hindley. Okay, Of course, his father's love for Heathcliff. I'm good, thank you, Melissa. How are you? I hope that life. Oh, sorry. Of course, his father's love for Heathcliff made Hindley hate Heathcliff even more. Finally, Mr. Earnshaw became tired of Hindley's bad temper, and Heathcliff bruised face. Okay, so you can see here that Mr. Earnshaw notices the fact that he's been beaten by Hindley. He decided to send Hindley to college. So he's sending him away to have some, so that Heathcliff will get some peace. I hoped that life would be quieter after that, but I was wrong. Oh, thank you. Big kisses to them too. I was wrong. The problem, I hope that life would be quieter after that, but I was wrong. The problem was Catherine. She was a very naughty, wild child, but she also had very beautiful dark eyes and a sweet smile. She loved Heathcliff too much and spent all her time with him. She liked to tease her father that she had more power over Heathcliff than he did. As her father grew weaker, she became even naughtier. Until one night. Naughty, if you remember, being naughty is always doing bad things. Yeah. Not mistakes, but it's mistakes is like it's not as strong as being naughty. And it's doesn't work. It doesn't apply very well. Being naughty is always making trouble, always doing things that you're not allowed to do. So she was a very naughty one. Sorry. As her father grew weaker, she became even naughtier until one night, Mr. Earnshaw lost his temper and said, "I cannot love you, Catherine. You are worse than your brother." This made her cry at first, but when I told her that to say sorry to her father, she laughed. A few weeks after he had lost his temper with Catherine, Mr. Earnshaw was sitting by the fire in the evening. As the wind blew around the house, Catherine sat against her father's knees, and Heathcliff lay on the floor with his head on her legs. I will sing, sat against her father's knees, and Heathcliff lay on the floor with his head on her legs. I will sing you to sleep, Daddy, Catherine said. Then she began to sing softly, and Mr. Earnshaw's head slowly dropped onto his chest. A few minutes later, Catherine touched him on the shoulder, but he did not move. Then she stood up and putting her arms around his neck, immediately screamed. "He's dead! Heathcliff is dead!" The two children began to cry, and I began to cry with them. Then Joseph told me to go and get the doctor from Gimmerton. I ran over the moor through the blowing wind and rain, and I brought the doctor back with me. When I went upstairs, Catherine and Heathcliff were in their room, but they were not in their beds. They were sitting close together on the floor, speaking beautifully about God and heaven. They did not need me because they had each other. And that's the end of chapter 3. And chapter 4 tomorrow is about Hindley returning from college. Ooh, now that the dad is dead and Hindley is back, you can guess that it's not going to be an easy life for Heathcliff. Unless Hindley has changed, but doubt. Tell me, what do you think about this chapter? Tell me, Kitty, what do you think about all the information that we just learned about Heathcliff and all the members in this family, the story of Catherine? It seems like Heathcliff had a tough time growing up. First by the fact of being abandoned and left on his own in the street of Liverpool. And it seems like it's maybe is a boy that, because remember, he's a boy that doesn't speak the language, but maybe another kind of dialect or another language. Don't really know. So, and new characters, yeah. And it feels like Liverpool was a very important port in the 19th century, and they used to travelers and yeah, travelers and also businessmen used to bring back a lot of food or spices, well, food, spices, and also people to workforce to help in the field or in the farms or in the land. And perhaps that Heathcliff comes from another country, has been deported from his original home, from his country, and has been brought to England, to Liverpool, and that maybe explains why he is not speaking the language and why he's got dark hair. So something that probably did not get well adapted on screen and on the different TV shows that adapted perhaps not the last adaptation of Wuthering Heights, because probably the boy that she describes is a black boy. And we have seen adaptations of Wuthering Heights, or in which the character of Heathcliff, yes. Oh, you wrote, but the time that I said it, you probably had written it. Yeah, there's a kind of a little gap between the moment you typing and the video and me speaking. Yes, that's probably that's a strong possibility, because she describes him as a dirty black-haired child. So here it's described, it says that he's got black hair, but in the story, yeah, here there is also, it's not very accurate, because if we if we stick to the story, or if we look carefully in the story, he is actually described as having a dark skin. I can't remember where I nearly start the narrative. And also an interesting fact is that Heathcliff orphan. He's an orphan, yeah. And how is it described? Um Hindley, young master, physical, verbal violence. Yeah, I don't know exactly in which passages, but what I remember from reading the story was that often it was written that he had a dark skin. Oops, sorry. That he had a dark skin. So, yeah. Black haired, yeah. Mrs. Cathy said I had a dirty, ragged, black-haired child. Yeah. It doesn't talk about the skin. A gypsy. Yeah, it talks about gypsy. Yes. So there is a fine line here. But it definitely has a dark skin. So yeah, or maybe is mixed race or something like that. But he's definitely has a dark hair. And I know that the latest adaptation, the boy is actually black, or he's kind of mixed race. So that's also something that could work, could be a possibility. And another thing is, what's interesting now is also what get the reader a little bit confused, as I was earlier, even having read the book before. So we started the story with Mr. Lockwood telling us, being the narrator, telling us about his arrival in Yorkshire in Thrushcross Grange. And now we are, from this chapter, we are now having a new narrator in the story, which is Nelly, the housekeeper of Thrushcross Grange. So now we have, and that's also very typical of the Gothic stories of the Victorian era and the 19th century, the Gothic style. It's that you have more than one narrator in the story. You have a story within a story. And in Frankenstein is it's very it's also very clear and very specific to that story as well. And also this is why it is also identified as a Gothic story. Yeah, so that was it for today. A lot of new characters, gets a bit confusing. So I'm gonna ask you another question for today. And if you've got the time to answer the question, please do in the comments, or on Instagram or on YouTube here. Have a go, try to answer this question. And I will be happy to discuss the answer tomorrow, when we will be reading chapter 4 tomorrow evening. So tomorrow at 6 Central European time. And of course, as I was saying, if you want to be part of the book club, please join us and have a chat, improve your English, and discuss about books with us. You just need to join the book club by clicking on the link in my in my bio, or you have the links also on YouTube, on my YouTube profile as well. So I wish you a beautiful afternoon, Kitty. Have a beautiful end of the day, and I will see you tomorrow for chapter 4. Bye bye. See you tomorrow.